Homeless girl offers baby brother to billionaire history. Responding to her desperation, Stanley enters the office. Then came the election. A little girl stood in the snow, clutching a baby in her frail arms, her voice trembling yet strong. "Don't you need a baby, sir? Take my brother, please. He's very hungry." Ethan Carter, billionaire real estate mogul, had faced ruthless boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but nothing prepared him for this. A 5-year-old offering her baby brother to a stranger. That moment, on a freezing winter night, shattered everything he thought he knew about life, about love, and set into motion a truth that would tear open the darkest secret of his powerful family. Because sometimes family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you're willing to fight for. The city never slept, but tonight it seemed to hold its breath beneath a veil of falling snow. Streetlights flickered through the white haze, casting long shadows on the pavement outside the Grand Evermont Hotel. It was the kind of night that whispered of endings or beginning. Ethan Carter stood alone outside the gala, the weight of success heavy on his shoulders. At 42, he had everything men envied: wealth, power, an empire built from steel and glass. And yet, beneath the tailored suit and the platinum watch, there was only emptiness. He'd just closed the deal of a lifetime, a $300 million zero-cents acquisition that would cement Carter Enterprises as the king of downtown real estate. Inside, champagne flowed and congratulations echoed, but Ethan had slipped away, suffocating beneath the hollowness of it all. The cold bit into him, sharp and sobering, as he adjusted his tie and waited for his Bentley. Success, he had learned, was colder than winter air. "Mr. Carter, your car will be here in a moment," the valet said, voice shivering, eyes filled with respect and fear. "No rush," Ethan replied, stepping away from the golden-lit entrance. He didn't know why he lingered. Maybe it was the snow, the way it covered the world in silence. Maybe it was the gnawing sense that despite everything he had, something vital was missing. That's when he saw her. A small figure moved near the hotel's decorative bushes. At first, Ethan thought it was a child playing where she shouldn't be, but as she stepped into the light, his breath caught. A little girl, maybe 5, wearing a red coat 2 sizes too big, her face pale against the wind, and in her arms, wrapped in a thin, worn blanket, was a baby, his tiny face nearly blue from the cold. Ethan's first instinct was disbelief. Where were her parents? Why was she here, in this weather, with a child? But then she spoke. "Don't you need a baby, sir?" Her voice was small but desperate. "Take my brother. He's 4 months old and he's very hungry." Time froze. Ethan Carter, the man known for his unshakable composure, stood stunned. In all his years of business he had witnessed human desperation, but never like this. Never so raw, so innocent. He crouched, eye level with the girl, struggling to find his voice. "Where are your parents?" The girl shifted, clutching the baby closer. "Mom went to get food, but it's been a long time." She glanced up at the sky, now ink black. "Since the sun was high." It was nearly midnight. Something twisted inside Ethan's chest, a feeling he couldn't name. The baby whimpered, a soft, pitiful sound that cut through him like glass. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Luna," she said. "And this is Theo." To Lucia, "I can't just take your brother." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't waver. "But he's really hungry, and it's really cold." That invisible grip around Ethan's heart tightened. He was a man of logic, of reason, but logic didn't fit here, in this moment, with this child. His car pulled up. His driver, Charles, opened the door, confused. "Mr. Carter." Ethan stood, a decision forming against every calculated instinct he had. "Luke, would you and Theo like to come with me? Somewhere warm? I'll give you food. And take care of your brother." Suspicion flickered in her eyes. "But how will Mum find us?" "We'll leave a message," Ethan said, "so she knows where you are." She hesitated, torn between fear and hope. Then, as Theo cried again, she nodded. Okay, Theo needs a bottle. Ethan turned to Charles. Help her into the car. Full heat. Yes, sir. As Luna climbed in, Ethan reached out. May I hold him? She clutched the baby tighter, then slowly, carefully, handed him over. Theo's body was feather-light in his arms, frighteningly cold. We'll take care of you, little one, Ethan murmured, stepping into the car, the warmth wrapping around them like a promise. The ride to Ethan's mansion was quiet, save for Luna's soft voice. Is your house far? Too far, Ethan replied. Will Theo make it? Yes, Luna. And when we get there, a doctor will help him. Doctors cost a lot, she said, her voice too old for her years. Ethan looked at her, this brave little girl with eyes too big for her face. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of everything. When they arrived at his estate, his housekeeper was waiting, shocked but ready. Ethan carried Theo inside, Luna close behind. And as the fire roared to life in the grand living room, Ethan Carter, the man who had built his world on numbers and steel, felt something shift. He didn't know it yet, but Luna and Theo were not strangers. They were his family. And this night, this impossible night, was only the beginning. Session 1, the night that changed everything. The mansion loomed tall against the midnight sky, its windows glowing softly through the curtain of falling snow. Ethan Carter stepped inside, cradling the frail bundle that was baby Theo, his mind spinning faster than it had in any boardroom. Luna trailed behind, her small hand gripping the hem of his coat, wide eyes darting nervously between the high ceilings and marble floors. To her, it might as well have been a castle from one of her storybooks. To Ethan, it was suddenly too large, too empty. Mrs. Powell, Ethan called, his voice steady though everything inside him was in turmoil. The housekeeper, a stern but kind woman who had worked for the Carter family for decades, appeared instantly from the hallway. Her sharp eyes widened as she took in the scene. Her employer, the epitome of control and solitude, holding a half-frozen infant with a disheveled little girl at his side. Mr. Carter, she asked carefully. Are our guests tonight? He said, his vicious little face lost in thought. I need you to prepare the guest room next to mine. Get everything you can for the baby. Formula, blankets, whatever we have. Mrs. Powell didn't ask questions. She simply nodded and disappeared into action, years of managing a household like clockwork kicking in. But even she couldn't hide the confusion in her eyes. Ethan walked toward the living room, settling Theo on the plush sofa near the fireplace. He quickly added more wood to the flames, watching as the baby's pale skin began to regain some color in the warmth. Luna, come here, Ethan said gently. She stood by the doorway, frozen in place. You're safe now. Sit by the fire, warm up. She obeyed, inching closer, her small hands extended toward the flames. Do you like hot chocolate? Mrs. Powell asked, suddenly appearing with a tray. Luna's eyes lit up, but she glanced at Ethan first, waiting for permission. It's okay, he nodded. She reached for the mug with trembling fingers, taking a cautious sip. A small sound escaped her lips, almost a sigh. For a moment, Ethan just watched her, mesmerized by the resilience she showed, sitting there in her too big coat, holding on to hope like it was the only thing she had left. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden. To be Dr. Morgan, Ethan said, rising swiftly. Within moments, the trusted family physician entered, his black bag in hand, his face shifting from polite concern to focused urgency as he assessed the room. You've certainly brought me into something different tonight, Ethan. I need you to check on the baby first, Ethan said, stepping aside. Dr. Morgan knelt beside Theo, his hands moving with practiced care. Luna watched every move, her body tense, her eyes never leaving her brother. He's dehydrated and cold, but I've seen worse. We'll need to get fluids in him, and some warmth. He'll recover. Ethan exhaled, not realizing he'd been holding his breath. Can I help? Ethan asked, surprising even himself. Dr. Morgan raised an eyebrow but nodded. Hold him like this, keep his head elevated. Ethan took Theo again, positioning him carefully. The baby stirred, his lips parting in a weak, instinctive cry. Dr. Morgan handed over a bottle, freshly prepared. Let him drink slowly. As Theo latched on, Ethan felt an unfamiliar sensation spread through him. The baby's tiny fingers clutched at his, and for a brief moment, the world narrowed down to just this. A fragile life depending on him. Hours passed in a haze of care and quiet. Luna had eaten, bathed, and now sat wrapped in a blanket on the guest bed. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching her with a mix of awe and worry. "Do you want me to stay until you fall asleep?" he asked. Luna shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. "I'll be right next door," he assured her. "If you need anything, Mr. Ethan," he added, "for not leaving us outside." His throat tightened. He nodded once and stepped out, leaving the door ajar. In his study, Ethan sat in silence. The fire here had burned low, but he didn't move to tend it. Instead, his mind churned through every detail of the night. He had no plan, no script. He only knew he couldn't just leave those children to fate. He poured himself a drink but didn't touch it. He remembered being 8, standing in this very room, looking for comfort in a father who never came. Richard Carter had been more interested in his next acquisition than in Ethan's bruised knees or broken heart. He wouldn't let that happen to Luna and Theo. Not on his watch. The next morning arrived with blinding sunlight streaming through the mansion's vast windows. Ethan hadn't slept. Instead, he'd sat by the crib Mrs. Powell had set up for Theo, listening to the baby's even breathing and the occasional rustle from Luna's room. At dawn, he made a decision. He would find their mother, and he would not fail them. Session 2. The Search for Maya. Ethan Carter had built his life on control. Every acquisition, every move calculated, precise. But now, as he sat in his study with the morning sun pouring in, cradling a cup of untouched coffee, he realized something unnerving. Control meant nothing in matters of the heart. Luna and Theo were asleep upstairs, safe for now, but their mother, Maya, was still out there, missing, possibly hurt, possibly worse. And for the first time in years, Ethan's priority wasn't a deal or a board meeting. It was finding her. By 9 a.m., Ethan had called in a favor from Frank Donovan, the most relentless private investigator in the city. Frank wasn't the kind of man you hired for petty secrets. He found people even when they didn't want to be found. Frank arrived within the hour, stepping into the Carter estate with the air of a man who had seen it all. But the sight of Ethan pacing, visibly tense, caught him off guard. "Didn't expect to see you like this, Carter," Frank said, dropping his coat on the chair. "What's going on?" Ethan didn't waste time. "I need you to find a woman. Her name's Maya. She's in her 20s, dark hair, blue eyes, thin. She has 2 children, Luna, age 5, and Theo, 4 months. She's their mother, and she's missing." Frank raised an eyebrow but remained professional. "Do you have a last name?" "No," Ethan admitted, frustrated. "Just what Luna told me. They lived near a park, red building. There's a store nearby with a giant ice cream." Frank scratched his chin. "Not a lot to go on, but I've worked with less. Any idea how long she's been missing?" "Luna said her mother went out for food yesterday and never came back." Frank's eyes narrowed. "Could be trouble. You think she abandoned them?" Ethan shook his head, uncertain. "I don't know, but I need to find her, Frank. Today." Frank moved quickly, pulling out his notepad. "I'll start at the shelters and hospitals. If she's in trouble, she might have gone for help or ended up somewhere worse." Ethan handed him a photo. It was one he had taken that morning, Luna holding Theo, both of them bundled up on the couch, their innocent eyes staring back at the camera. "This is them," Ethan said, "in case someone saw them together." Frank nodded. "I'll get back to you as soon as I have something." As Frank left, Ethan returned to the guest room where Luna and Theo were now awake. Luna sat cross-legged on the bed, watching cartoons, while Theo lay beside her, cooing softly. "Good morning," Ethan said, forcing a smile. Luna looked up, her eyes searching his face. Is Mom coming today? Ethan knelt beside her. I'm looking for her right now, Luna. I've asked someone to help me find her. We're going to bring her home. Luna bit her lip, then nodded slowly. She's probably scared. Ethan's heart ached. We'll find her, I promise. The hours dragged. Ethan couldn't focus. He tried to answer emails, to review reports from his office, but his mind always returned to Maya. Who was she? Why had she left her children in the cold? And why did he feel such a strange pull, an urgency that didn't make sense? By late afternoon, Frank called. I think I've got something, he said. I found the building Luna described. Neighbors confirmed seeing a young woman with 2 kids. She hasn't been home since 2 nights ago. Did they say anything else? Ethan asked, already grabbing his coat. Woman said she saw her leave in a hurry, carrying the baby, but she came back alone. She looked sick, pale, unsteady. Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. Where did she go? No one knows, but I checked nearby shelters. There's one, New Hope, that admitted a young woman matching Maya's description 3 days ago. Pneumonia, malnourished. She used the name Maya Suarez. Ethan's heart dropped. Is she still there? Yes. I spoke to the director. She's weak, but alive. I'm on my way. Ethan drove through the city like a man possessed, the luxury car slicing through traffic, snow melting against the windshield. The New Hope shelter stood in stark contrast to his world. It was small, worn, a place of last resorts. But inside, people fought to survive. He was met by a volunteer, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. Maya Suarez, Ethan asked, barely able to contain himself. She's resting, the woman said, but you can see her. Ethan followed her down a dim hallway to a small room. There, lying on a narrow bed, was a young woman, frail, her dark hair tangled, her skin almost translucent. His breath caught. She looked so much like Luna. As if sensing him, her eyes fluttered open. Who? My name is Ethan Carter, he said gently. I have your children. They're safe. Tears sprang instantly to her eyes. Luna. Are they? They're okay. I found them. They're at my home. Maya sat up, wincing. Thank God, I didn't mean to leave them. Ethan approached, unsure why his chest ached at the sight of her. What happened? I was trying to find food, she whispered. I was sick. I couldn't breathe. Someone brought me here. Ethan sat beside her. You need to come with me. Rest. Be with your children. Maya looked at him, bewildered. Why? Why would you help me? I don't know yet, Ethan admitted, but I can't walk away. That night, Ethan brought Maya home, and the night that changed everything was only the beginning. Session 3. A family of strangers. The car ride back to the mansion was silent, but not in the way Ethan was used to. This silence was heavy, filled with unspoken fears, fragile hopes, and something deeper Ethan couldn't quite name. Maya sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in a coat too big for her thin frame. She stared out the window, her fingers clenching and unclenching the blanket draped over her lap. Every few seconds she would glance back, as if expecting to see Luna or Theo behind her. They're at the house, Ethan said softly. Luna's with Mrs. Power and Theo's asleep. Maya nodded but said nothing. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter. They've missed you. A soft sound, half sob, half breath, escaped her lips. I thought I lost them, she whispered. When I collapsed, all I could think was, they're alone. You don't have to worry anymore, Ethan assured her. You're home now. But even as he said it, he knew this wasn't her home. Not yet. Maybe never. They were still strangers, bound only by a chance encounter and the fragile thread of a child's desperate plea. When they arrived, Mrs. Powell met them at the door, her face unreadable but kind. "I've prepared the guest room," she said, "and a warm bath." "Thank you," Ethan replied, helping Maya out of the car. Her legs trembled, but she refused his arm. "I can walk," she insisted, her voice stronger than he expected. Inside, Luna sat on the staircase, hugging her stuffed elephant. Her eyes widened when she saw her mother, and for a moment neither moved. Then, "Mommy." Maya dropped the blanket and rushed forward, falling to her knees as Luna flew into her arms. "My baby, my sweet girl," Maya sobbed, clutching Luna tightly. "I'm so sorry. I'm here now. I'm here." Ethan stood back, heart pounding, watching the reunion unfold like something sacred. Theo's cry echoed from upstairs. Maya looked up, eyes pleading. "Please, let me see him." Ethan nodded, leading her gently to the nursery. Theo lay in the crib, his tiny fists waving in the air. Maya approached slowly, tears falling freely as she reached down and scooped him up. "Oh, my love, look how big you've gotten," she whispered, cradling him close. "I'm so sorry, Theo. I missed you so much." The baby nestled into her warmth, as if recognizing the heartbeat he once knew. Ethan watched from the doorway, something tight and unfamiliar blooming in his chest. This was what love looked like. Later that evening, as the house settled into a quiet hum, Ethan sat alone in his study. He stared at the flames dancing in the fireplace, trying to make sense of it all. Why did he care so much? Why couldn't he walk away? The answer eluded him. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Mrs. Powell. "Mr. Carter, while I was preparing Maya's things, I found something." She handed him a small envelope, worn and creased. Inside was a faded photograph. Ethan froze, his voice dropping to a whisper. It was a picture of a woman, young, beautiful, with striking blue eyes. He knew that face. "Elena Suarez," Mrs. Powell said, "Maya's mother." Ethan sat down hard. That name. It echoed through the halls of his memory, dragging forth a chapter he'd almost forgotten. "Elena worked for my father," Ethan murmured, "years ago." Mrs. Powell hesitated. "There's more. Maya mentioned something at the shelter about her father. She said he never knew she existed." But Ethan wasn't listening anymore, because he remembered now. Elena, the quiet assistant who had suddenly disappeared one summer, the hushed arguments between his father and mother, the silence that followed. And something else. A rumor. A whisper. "She said her father's name was Richard," Mrs. Powell added softly. Ethan's blood turned cold. Richard Carter, his father. The next morning, Ethan couldn't shake it. The photograph burned in his pocket. Maya was his sister. Luna and Theo, his niece and nephew. He paced the study, the weight of it crashing down on him. This wasn't chance. It was blood. Maya found him there, hours later. "You're avoiding me," she said quietly. Ethan turned, eyes haunted. "I found something." She frowned. "What?" He handed her the photo. "My mother," Maya said, her voice soft with confusion. "Where did you get this?" "She worked for my father," Ethan said. "I remember her. She left." Suddenly, Maya's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" He stepped closer, heart pounding. "Did your mother ever tell you who your father was?" Maya hesitated. "She said his name was Richard. He was powerful, owned buildings. That's all." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Richard Carter is my father." Silence. Utter, deafening silence. Maya stared at him, the pieces falling into place. "That's not..." Her silence. "It is," Ethan said. You're my sister, Maya. Her legs gave way and she collapsed into the chair behind her. Luna's voice floated in from the hallway, oblivious to the storm in the room. Maya, don't, she snapped, tears streaming. Please, don't. Ethan knelt before her. I didn't know, I swear, but we can figure this out, together. She shook her head, overwhelmed. His whole life. I thought I had no one. You do now, Ethan said, his voice breaking. You always did. Session 4. The Confrontation. The morning was still, almost too still, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Ethan stood in front of the tall windows in his study, watching the frost melt slowly from the glass, but his mind wasn't on the weather. Maya's face from the night before haunted him. A shock. A disbelief. The betrayal. He hadn't slept. How could he? The truth had detonated between them like a bomb, turning what had been a fragile trust into raw confusion. Maya was his sister. Luna and Theo. His niece and nephew. And the man responsible for the secrets, the lies, the pain. Richard Carter. His father. Ethan's phone buzzed on the desk. A message from his father's assistant. Mr. Richard Carter is expecting you at 10 a.m. Right on time. Ethan didn't need to prepare. The words were burning inside him, waiting to be unleashed. He grabbed his coat, the photograph of Elena Suarez still in his pocket like a ghost, and left without a word. The Carter Enterprises building loomed over the city, sleek and cold, a reflection of the man who built it. Ethan moved through the familiar halls, the polished marble floors clicking beneath his shoes, but today everything felt different. He wasn't here as a son. Not anymore. Mr. Carter is waiting for you, Claire, Richard's longtime assistant said with a tight smile. Ethan nodded, pushing open the heavy door. Richard Carter stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring down at the city as if he still owned every inch of it. At 72, he was still as commanding as ever. Sharp suit, silver hair, and that calculating mind always 3 steps ahead. Ethan, Richard said without turning. I wasn't expecting a meeting today. Something urgent. You could say that. Richard turned, raising an eyebrow at his son's tone. What's this about? Ethan didn't sit. He tossed the photograph onto the sleek desk. Richard glanced down. His face barely changed, but Ethan saw it. A flicker. Recognition. Regret. Elena Suarez, Ethan said coldly. She worked for you 24 years ago. She disappeared. Do you remember why? Richard didn't answer immediately. He picked up the photo, studying it. I remember her. She had a daughter, Dad. Richard's eyes lifted. Her name's Maya, Ethan continued, stepping closer. She's 24 now, and she's your daughter. The silence stretched like a blade between them. You're mistaken, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't, Ethan snapped. Don't lie to me. I found her. I found your grandchildren, Luna and Theo, alone in the cold because their mother collapsed. Richard sank slowly into his chair, the photograph still in his hand. Had no idea. A police ship, Ethan shot back. You knew. You sent her away. Richard's face hardened. Your mother was sick. I couldn't risk scandalo. Elena understood. She understood nothing. Ethan's voice cracked with fury. You abandoned them. You let a child grow up thinking she was unwanted, unloved. You turned your back on your own blood. Richard exhaled, as if the weight of the years had suddenly caught up with him. I made a choice. No, Ethan said, his voice low and cold. You made a mistake, one that nearly cost Maya her life. For the first time, Richard looked small. I need to see her, he said quietly. Ethan shook his head. She's not ready, and you're not forgiven. I'm dying, Richard said, almost as a whisper. Quite pancreatic cancer. They gave me 6 months. Ethan stepped back as if struck. I was going to tell you. I've been getting my affairs in order. You're unbelievable, Ethan spat. You think dying excuses everything. No, Richard admitted, but it's time I faced it. Back at the mansion, Maya sat by the window, watching Luna play in the garden. The night's revelation had left her numb. A family. A brother. A father who never wanted her. The door creaked open, and Ethan stepped in, eyes weary. I saw him. Maya didn't turn. And he wants to see you. She let out a bitter laugh. Now he does? He's dying. Silence. I don't care, she said, though her voice trembled. He's a stranger. Ethan sat beside her. He's your father, our father. Tears welled in her eyes. He's nothing. Then tell him that. Face him? She turned, eyes blazing. Why do you care? Because I know what it's like to grow up with him, Ethan said. To wish for something more. Maybe you won't get the closure you want, but maybe you'll find something else. That evening, Maya stood in the doorway of Richard Carter's hospital room. He looked smaller now, hooked up to machines, but his eyes, her eyes, were still sharp. Maya, he whispered. She stepped inside, slow, cautious. You wanted to see me? She asked. Richard nodded. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed to see you, once. Maya's throat tightened. You left us. I did. She sat down, folding her hands in her lap. I grew up hungry, alone. I hated you. I know. Do you even care? She asked, voice cracking. I do now. She stood. Then die with that. Session 5. The choice that could break them. The winter sun filtered through the tall windows of the Carter mansion, casting pale light across the living room where Maya sat, unmoving. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers knotted together so tightly they'd turned white. The confrontation with Richard the night before played over and over in her mind, each word echoing louder than the last. I needed to see you, Watts. Then die with that. She should have felt lighter, she told herself. After years of questions and bitterness, she had finally said the words she thought would free her. But they didn't. Instead, they left a hollow ache that even Theo's soft coos or Luna's laughter couldn't quite reach. In the kitchen, Ethan watched her from a distance. He could sense it. Her world was shifting again, and she was stuck between what was right and what was unbearable. He poured 2 cups of coffee, the bitter aroma curling into the morning air, and walked over. Here, he said, offering her a cup. She accepted it wordlessly, staring into the dark liquid. Have you told Luna? He asked gently. Maya shook her head. What do I say? That the man she's been calling Grandpa is the same man who threw her mother away. Ethan sat beside her, sighing. She's just a kid. To her, he's the one who brought her books and necklaces, the one who taught her to play chess. I know, Maya whispered. That's what scares me. Upstairs, Luna was sitting cross-legged on her bed, drawing pictures of elephants. One had big ears and a crown, another held a balloon. She hummed to herself, glancing occasionally at the doorway. Is Mummy okay? She asked when Ethan peeked in. He's thinking about some hard things, he said, kneeling beside her. She just needs a little time. Luna frowned. Is it because Grandpa's sick? Ethan paused. Yes, and because she has to decide if she wants him to stay in our lives. Luna's eyes widened. He's not staying. Up to your mom, Ethan said carefully. How do you feel about him? Luna shrugged. He's nice, but Mama's scared of him. Would you be okay if you didn't see him as much? Luna thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. If Mummy's not sad, I'm okay. Ethan kissed her forehead. You're a smart girl. Back downstairs, Maya stood at the window, watching frost form delicate patterns on the glass. He wants to make things right, Ethan said softly behind her. It's too late. Maybe, he agreed. But what about Luna and Theo? They don't know his past. I don't want him near them, Maya said, her voice shaking. But he's dying, Ethan. How do I tell them he's gone? That I didn't let them say goodbye? You could let them see him once more, Ethan offered. On your terms. Maya turned, eyes glistening. I don't want them to love him. Then teach them the truth, Ethan said. Let them choose what to hold on to. Not lies, not hate, just truth. That afternoon, Richard sent a letter. It was short, handwritten in shaky script. Maya, I understand. But if there's still time, I'd like to say goodbye. To you, to Luna, to Theo. Not as Richard Carter, the man who failed you, but as the man trying, even now, to learn how to love. Maya read it over and over, her heart torn. 3 days later, Maya made her choice. She dressed Luna in her favorite yellow coat, bundled Theo warmly, and drove with Ethan to the hospital, where Richard now stayed. The air was heavy with silence as they walked through the halls. In Richard's room, he looked older, smaller, but when he saw them, something sparked in his eyes. Luna ran to him without hesitation. Grandpa, I brought you something. She held out a small, crumpled drawing, 3 elephants holding hands. Richard took it, tears brimming. It's beautiful. Theo reached for him too, and Maya froze, but Ethan nodded, encouraging. She handed Theo over, her arms trembling. For a long time there were no words, just breaths, just presence. Then Maya spoke, voice clear and strong. We deserve better than what I had. I won't let you hurt them. Richard nodded. I wouldn't dream of it. You won't see them again after today, she said. We understand. You live in them, she added, softer now, in Luna's eyes, in Theo's stubbornness. I won't erase you, but I won't let you control this. Richard swallowed hard, holding Theo close one last time, aching for this. Maya took Theo back, standing tall. Goodbye, Richard. As they walked away down the long corridor, Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. He did what was right. Maya nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. And for the first time, she didn't feel broken. She felt free. Session 6, a new beginning. The snow was melting. For the first time in months, sunlight lingered on the edges of the Carter estate's vast garden, casting a soft glow on the grass as it emerged from beneath its icy blanket. Spring was coming, and with it something else, something neither Ethan nor Maya could have predicted. This. It had been a week since they last saw Richard, a week since Maya had made the hardest choice of her life. Since then, the house had changed, not in appearance, but in feeling. The silence that once echoed through its halls now hummed with laughter, footsteps, life. Maya stood at the kitchen island stirring a pot of soup. Theo perched on her hip. He babbled happily, his tiny fingers tugging at her sleeve. She smiled down at him, pressing a kiss to his forehead. You're getting heavy, little man, she whispered, shifting him to her other side. Luna bounded in from the garden, cheeks flushed pink, her hair tangled from the wind. Mum, Ethan said we can go to the park later. Can we? Please. Maya laughed. If you clean up first. I will, I promise. Luna darted off, leaving a trail of muddy footprints in her wake. Maya shook her head, setting Theo down in his playpen. She turned back to the stove, but before she could finish, Ethan appeared in the doorway. Need a hand? He asked, rolling up his sleeves. She glanced at him, still not used to the sight of him like this, relaxed, almost playful, a man once defined by schedules and contracts now finding comfort in the everyday. You can chop those carrots. She nodded toward the cutting board. He stepped up beside her, their shoulders brushing. For a while they worked in silence, the kind that comes not from tension, but from understanding. After lunch they sat in the sunroom, the windows thrown open to let in the fresh, chilly air. Luna colored at the table, while Tia napped nearby. Maya sipped tea, legs curled beneath her, and watched Ethan thoughtfully. "You've changed," she said suddenly. He looked up, surprised. "How so?" "You smile more. You're here more." Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I didn't realize how empty my life was before. All this," he gestured around the room, "this wasn't living, it was just existing." Maya nodded. "I felt that way too, for a long time." There was a pause. "What about now?" Ethan asked. She turned to the window, watching Luna hew to herself, the markers scattered in front of her. "Now," Maya's voice was soft, "now I feel like I'm finally becoming who I was meant to be, not just a mother or a girl trying to survive, but someone who gets to choose." Ethan studied her, admiration shining in his eyes. "You've always been that. You just needed the chance." Later that evening, a letter arrived. It was from Richard. His handwriting was weaker this time, more uneven, but still unmistakably his. To Maya, Ethan, Luna, and Theo. "Thank you for letting me see what I never thought I would, what it means to have a family. I don't know how much time I have left, but what I do know is this: I don't want to die with only regrets. I've changed my will. Everything I have is now split between you, Ethan, and Maya. But more than money, I hope you'll accept something else. My name, my legacy, not as the man I was, but as the man I tried to become. With whatever love I am capable of. Richard." Maya stared at the letter, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure what to feel. Gratitude? Resentment? Sadness? "He's giving us everything," she whispered. Ethan read over her shoulder, his jaw tight. "I don't care about the money. I care about what we build now." She turned to him, eyes brimming. "And what is that?" "A family," he said simply. "Ours. Whatever that looks like." Days passed. Richard's condition worsened, but Maya didn't visit again. She didn't need to. The letter was enough, a closing chapter she could live with. Instead, she focused on her children, on rebuilding her life. She finished her online course, began designing small projects for local clients. Slowly, she started to believe in her own future. One afternoon, as she sat with Ethan in the garden, watching Luna teach Theo to crawl in the grass, she spoke. "I'm thinking about moving out." Ethan's chest tightened. "You want to leave?" "No," she said quickly. "Not far, just to my own place. I want to show Luna what it means to stand on your own, to build something from the ground up." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding. "I want you in our lives," Maya added, her voice trembling. "I want you to be part of this, whatever this is." He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm not going anywhere." That night, Ethan sat alone in his study. The fire crackled softly, casting shadows across the room. He pulled out a photograph, Luna and Theo in the garden, Maya laughing behind them. He never imagined this. A sister, a family, a purpose beyond profit. A knock at the door. Maya peeked in, her eyes warm. "Can sleep?" He smiled. "Just thinking." She walked over, standing beside him. "What about?" "How lucky I am," he said, looking up at her. "To have found you." She touched his shoulder lightly. "We found each other." And for the first time, Ethan believed that maybe, just maybe, everything broken could be made whole. Section 7. Legacies of the Heart. The day Richard Carter died, the city seemed unchanged. Business carried on, Cars filled the streets. Suits and ties buzzed through the halls of Carter Enterprises. But inside the mansion, something shifted, subtle but undeniable. A chapter had ended. The news came early in the morning. A simple call from the hospice nurse, her voice soft, rehearsed. We passed peacefully. Just before dawn, Maya stood at the window of the nursery, Theo nestled in her arms. She hadn't said much, just a nod, a quiet breath, and then silence. Ethan had taken the call, but it was Maya who felt the final weight of it, the closing of a door she had never wanted opened in the first place. She rocked Theo gently, staring out at the budding trees. Spring was in the air, and with it the bittersweet scent of endings and beginnings. Later that morning, Ethan joined her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded slowly. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel." "You don't have to know," he said, stepping beside her. "There's no rule book for this. He wasn't in my life, not really. But now that he's gone, it's like there's a space where something might have been." Ethan understood. Too well. At Richard's office, everything was already in motion. Lawyers, assistants, shareholders, they all knew what to do. A man like Richard Carter didn't leave chaos behind, or so they thought. It wasn't until the reading of the will that Ethan discovered Richard's final twist. In the polished boardroom of Carter Enterprises, Ethan sat with Maya, flanked by Richard's longtime attorney, Mr. Hammond. The will was long, detailed, divisions of assets, properties, shares. Maya had inherited enough to secure her children's futures 10 times over, but it was the last clause that left them stunned. "To my son, Ethan Carter, and my daughter, Maya Suarez, should she accept the name, I leave Carter Enterprises in equal parts." The room fell silent. "What?" Maya's voice cracked, disbelief coloring her words. Mr. Hammond cleared his throat. "Your father made it clear. He wanted both of you to carry on his legacy, together." Ethan sat back, stunned. "That doesn't make sense. Maya, she's not a CEO, Maya finished, her hands shaking. "I don't want this. I never asked for any of this." His voice humming with pleasure. Hammond continued, sliding over a sealed envelope. "He left this for you, personally." Maya took it, fingers trembling. Back at the mansion, she opened it alone. "I know this is not what you wanted. But I also know what it means to feel powerless, to have your life shaped by others. I gave you nothing when you were born. No name, no support, no love. Now I give you the one thing I can. You can walk away, or you can take my name, take what I built and turn it into something better, something yours, something theirs. Whatever you decide, I trust you. And I'm sorry I never said that while I lived." "Richard." Maya sat in silence, the letter pressed to her chest. Choice. It was all she'd ever wanted, and now that she had it, it felt like the heaviest burden she'd ever carried. That night, Maya and Ethan sat together in the garden, watching Luna chase fireflies with a jar, Theo babbling nearby. "What are you going to do?" Ethan asked quietly. Maya looked at him, the man who had become her anchor in a world she barely recognized. "I don't want his company," she said, "but I don't want to run from it either." Ethan nodded. "Then don't. Don't run. Shape it. Change it." She smiled softly. "With you." Voice. 2 weeks later, Carter Enterprises announced a new era. Maya Suarez Carter, co-chair. Not in title only, but in purpose. Together, Maya and Ethan stood before a sea of reporters, their father's shadow behind them, but their own light just beginning to rise. That evening, after the cameras, the questions, and the headlines faded, Maya stood in the nursery, watching Theo sleep. She wasn't the same girl who had offered her baby brother to a stranger. She wasn't the daughter abandoned. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a builder now, a creator, a mother, a sister, And as Luna tiptoed in, whispering, "Mommy, tell me a story," Maya smiled, pulling her close. "This is the story of a girl who found her voice," she began, her heart full, "and used it to change the world." Session 8. When Silence Speaks. The boardroom was quiet now. The storm of Richard Carter's death had passed. The media frenzy over the unexpected heirs had settled into curiosity, and Carter Enterprises stood at a crossroads. Maya Suarez Carter, as the papers now called her, sat at the head of the long, gleaming table, a place she never imagined for herself. Across from her, Ethan watched, proud but cautious. "You don't have to prove anything," he'd said that morning, as she adjusted her blazer, straightened her notes and prepared for her first solo meeting. But she wasn't trying to prove something to them. She was proving it to herself. By the end of the meeting, the board had approved her first initiative, a foundation in Elena Suarez's name, dedicated to supporting single mothers. No one objected, not because they believed in it, necessarily, but because Maya wasn't Richard, and they were still trying to figure her out. She didn't care. She wasn't here to be figured out. Back at the mansion, Maya walked through the halls with new eyes. This house, once foreign, had become something else, not home exactly, but a place where pieces of her life had started to fall together. Mrs. Powell met her in the foyer. "Miss Maya, something arrived for you." The housekeeper handed over a small, warm box. "It was among Mr. Richard's things. He requested it be given to you." Maya froze. Did he say what it was? No, but it's old. Alone in her room, Maya opened the box slowly. Inside, wrapped in delicate yellowing paper, was a letter. Her mother's handwriting. Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen that familiar script in years. She unfolded the letter carefully, tears already stinging her eyes. "My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and something has brought you back to the Nate Carter. I never wanted you to carry the weight of my choices, but I knew one day you might seek the truth. There was love once, between Richard and me, not the kind the world would understand, but enough that, for a brief time, I believed in it, until I saw who he really was. He didn't just send me away. I left because I knew staying would destroy us both, and I didn't want that for you. I wanted you to grow without his shadow, without his coldness. But I also wanted you to know this. He wasn't all bad. There were moments, fleeting, rare, when he tried. You are not his mistake. You are my greatest joy. Live free, Maya. Live full, and forgive if you can. Not for him, but for you. With all my love. Mum." Maya sat on the bed, the letter pressed to her chest, sobs shaking her body. She'd waited her whole life to hear her mother say those words, and now in the silence, they spoke louder than anything. Ethan found her an hour later. She handed him the letter, unable to speak. He read it slowly, carefully, then sat beside her. "She loved him," Maya whispered. "Maybe, in her way. She left to protect me." Ethan nodded. "He wanted me to forgive him." "That's not something you owe him," Ethan said gently. "But if it brings you peace." Maya wiped her tears. "I'm tired of carrying anger." That evening, Maya sat with Lucio in the garden, watching the sunset bleed into the sky. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Luna asked, crawling into her lap. "I'm not sad, baby," Maya said, stroking her hair. "Just thinking about Grandma." Luna's eyes lit up. "Can you tell me a story about her?" Maya smiled softly. "Yes, I think it's time you knew." As the stars came out, Maya told her children about Elena Suarez, about strength, about love, about choices that hurt and healed. And in that quiet night, Maya's heart began to mend in ways she never thought possible. The next day, Maya and Ethan stood before the foundation's new building. An old property Richard once planned to tear down. Now it would be rebuilt, not for profit, but for purpose. A reporter approached, notebook in hand. "Miss Suarez Carter, what do you hope to achieve?" Maya looked at Ethan, then at the building. "I want to give women like my mother, like me, a chance, a voice, a..." She paused. "And maybe, I want to rewrite what legacy means." As they walked away, hand in hand, Maya whispered to Ethan, his voice saying something else here. He pulled away, his voice humming. And for the first time, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Session 9, The Price of Peace. Peace, as Maya was learning, came with a price. It wasn't the quiet she had imagined. It wasn't the absence of struggle or the soft lull of happy endings. No, peace was something you fought for, something you bled for, and just as she thought she could breathe finally, something new came to test her resolve. It started with a letter, delivered not with kindness, but by a man in a sharp suit who stood at the front door of the Carter estate with an expression too polished, too cold. "Here on behalf of the Carter Family Trust," he said, "we're contesting the validity of Richard Carter's final will." Maya stood frozen, Luna clinging to her side, Theo's soft babble breaking the still air. He asked. Maya's voice was tight. The man handed her a thick envelope. "We believe undue influence was involved. Given your recent arrival into Mr. Carter's life, the board has reason to question your claim." She stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "I suggest you consult your attorney," he added, then turned without another word. Ethan arrived home an hour later to find Maya in the study, the letter open on the desk, her hands shaking as she held the pages. "They're trying to take it all back," she said as soon as he walked in. He didn't need to ask what. One look at the documents told him everything. A board, the shareholders. They didn't care about the truth, they cared about control, about legacy. "They don't believe I'm his daughter," Maya whispered. "They think I manipulated him." "They don't know you," Ethan said, jaw tight. "They're scared. That's all this is." She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "What if they win?" "They won't." The next few days were a blur of meetings, lawyers, and strategies. Ethan called in every favor he had. He stood beside her through it all, but Maya could feel the pressure mounting. "I don't want to fight," she confessed one night, pacing the garden as the stars blinked overhead. "I know," Ethan said softly, "but sometimes peace isn't given, it's taken." She stopped, turning to him. "What if we lost it all? The foundation, the company, everything." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then we start again, together." But it wasn't just about the money. It was about her name, her right to stand in the place she had fought so hard to reach. And when the court date arrived, Maya stood tall, Ethan at her side, and faced the room of men and women who still saw her as an outsider. The courtroom was cool, the air thick with tension. The opposing lawyer, a sleek, seasoned man named Wallace Grant, rose first. "Your Honor, we contend that Miss Maya Suarez exerted emotional pressure on Mr. Carter in the final weeks of his life, leading to a will that does not reflect his true intentions." Maya's attorney stood calmly. Miss Suarez did not even know of her relation to Mr. Carter until shortly before his passing. She sought no inheritance, only the truth. The judge looked at Maya. "Miss Suarez, would you like to speak?" Her throat tightened, but she rose. "Yes, Your Honor." She stepped forward, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. "I didn't grow up with Richard Carter. I didn't know he was my father until weeks before he died. And when I found out, I didn't ask him for anything. He gave me a choice, to accept his name, his legacy, or to walk away. I chose to stay, not for wealth, but for my children, so they could know where they came from, so they could build something better." She paused, breathing deeply. "I don't want his empire. I want to honor the parts of him that tried, even at the end, to make things right. And no amount of money can buy that." Silence filled the room. The judge took days to deliberate. Days where Maya and Ethan waited, holding their breath, trying to shield Luna and Theo from the storm outside. And when the decision came, it was clear. The court finds no evidence of coercion or undue influence. The will stands. Miss Suarez is recognized as a rightful heir. Maya collapsed into Ethan's arms, tears spilling freely. They had won. But more than that, they had kept something no one could take. Her peace. Later that evening, as the house filled with the quiet sounds of a family trying to find normal again, Ethan found Maya standing in the nursery, watching Theo sleep. "We're free now," she said. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Yes, we are." She turned, looking up at him. "What do we do now?" He smiled. "Whatever we want." Session 10. The Choice of Forever. The air was warmer now. Spring had fully claimed the garden at the Carter estate, painting everything in fresh greens and soft pastels. Life was blooming not just outside but inside the walls of the house that had once felt too cold, too large for hearts like theirs. Maya stood by the kitchen window, watching Luna chase Theo across the grass, their laughter floating on the breeze. They were happy, and for the first time, so was she. Peace, real peace, had come. But there was still something left unsaid, something she could feel in Ethan's every glance, in the way his hands lingered just a second longer when they brushed against hers, in the quiet spaces they now shared. A choice neither of them had dared to name. Not yet. That evening, as twilight turned the sky into shades of lavender and gold, Ethan stood on the balcony, a glass of wine untouched in his hand. Maya joined him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, her hair loose and catching the wind. "You've been quiet," she said softly. He nodded, not looking at her. "Just thinking." "About?" He turned then, his eyes searching hers. "About us." Her breath caught. "Maya, when I first found you and the kids, I thought it was an accident, a chance. But it wasn't, was it?" She shook her head, stepping closer. "No, it wasn't. I've spent my life building walls, around myself, around my heart. But you," his voice faltered, then grew stronger, "you broke through. And I don't want to live behind those walls anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't have to," she whispered. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box, simple and elegant. Maya gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Marry me," Ethan said, his voice low, steady. "Not because we've been through so much, not because of Richard or the company or anything else, but because I love you. I love Luna, I love Theo, and I want to build forever with you." She didn't speak at first. She couldn't. But then she laughed, through the tears, through the ache of everything they had endured. "Yes," she breathed, wrapping her arms around him. "Yes, Ethan." The wedding was small. In the garden beneath the old oak tree where Luna had once taught Richard how to build a fairy house, surrounded by only those who mattered. Mrs. Powell cried as she fixed Maya's veil. Luna twirled in her new dress, proudly announcing to anyone who would listen that she was getting a real family today. Theo clapped and giggled, too young to understand but sensing the joy in every face. And Ethan, standing at the end of the aisle, watching Maya walk toward him, knew that everything in his life, all the power, all the wealth, mean nothing compared to this moment. After the vows, after the rings, after the kiss that sealed a promise made not just between two people, but within a family reborn, they sat beneath the stars, holding hands, their children asleep nearby. "You know," Maya said, her head resting on his shoulder, "if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be here, married, loved, safe, I wouldn't have believed them." Ethan smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Neither would I." They sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. Then Maya spoke again. Forever's a long time. Ethan turned to her, eyes soft. Not long enough. Epilogue. 5 years later, the foundation thrived. Carter Enterprises flourished under new leadership that valued not just profit, but purpose. Luna, now 10, played the piano with the same determination her mother once had for survival. Theo ran through the garden, strong and fearless. And Maya and Ethan? They stood side by side every day, not just as partners in life, but in everything they touched. Their story wasn't one of fairy tales or perfect endings. It was a story of choice, of love found in the coldest places, of forgiveness that healed more than just the past, of forever, not as an idea, but as a daily, deliberate act. 'Cause sometimes the family you find is the one that saves you. And the love you never expected is the love that lasts forever. And culture, what it means to choose love. Some stories don't begin the way we expect. They start on cold nights, in desperate moments, with choices made out of survival, not hope. Maya never dreamed of a fairy tale. Her life had been one of struggle, of empty promises, of hunger, of fear. The day she stood outside that hotel, clutching her baby brother, offering him to a man she thought couldn't care less, that was the day everything began. Not because a billionaire saved her, but because someone chose to see her. Ethan Carter didn't believe in fate. He believed in numbers, in logic, in deals won and lost. Love, family, those were luxuries he never allowed himself. Until a little girl with 2 big eyes asked him, "Don't you need a baby, sir?" Until he held a fragile child in his arms and realized he wasn't empty, he was waiting for them. This isn't a story about wealth or power. It's a story about choice, about what happens when we open the doors we've spent years locking tight, about the courage it takes to forgive, not just others, but ourselves. Maya could have run, could have stayed hidden in the shadows of her past, but she didn't. She stepped into the light. She faced the man who left her mother. She faced the legacy she never asked for. And she didn't let it break her. She let it make her. Richard Carter's death wasn't the end. It was the beginning, a chance to rebuild something better, to strip away the coldness and create warmth where there had been none. Through Richard's final acts, flawed as they were, Maya and Ethan discovered something greater than inheritance or names on a building. Found family, not the kind you're born into, but the kind you fight for, the kind you choose. The lessons they learned. Love isn't given, it's chosen. Ethan didn't have to stay that night. He didn't have to take in 2 strangers, but he did. Not because it was easy, but because it was right. Forgiveness is freedom. To forget, not to excuse the past, but to free herself from it. She learned that holding on to anger only kept her from living. Family is more than blood. It's the people who show up, who hold you in the dark, who believe in you when you've forgotten how. Legacy is what you leave in hearts, not just in bank accounts. Richard left an empire, yes, but more importantly, he left a lesson. That power without love means nothing, that the real wealth is in the lives you touch. For you, dear reader, if you've ever been hurt, if you've ever wondered if love is worth it, if you've ever felt abandoned, unseen, or afraid to trust again, let Maya's story remind you. It's never too late to heal. It's never too late to choose love. And sometimes the family you never knew you needed is waiting in the most unexpected places. Because love doesn't just happen. It's built, it's fought for, it's chosen. Every single day.
Thank you for watching this Millionaire Love Stories today. Every love story is a journey, filled with passion, heartbreak, and unforgettable moments. And here at Millionaire Love Stories, we bring you the most captivating tales of love, wealth, and destiny. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, like to support more incredible content. Comment your thoughts. Would you choose love over riches? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Millionaire Love Stories. Because love knows no limits. Because love changes everything. See you in the next story.